My Time Podcast with Asher Tchoua.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to
Thank
have
you.
you. But like you were
Thank you for
saying,
having me.
it's you're welcome. It has been a long time. I think it's like maybe 2013 was the last time I saw you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just thinking back to a time at Georgia Tech. It was yeah, I mean, I've been from Georgia in that time to Florida, and now from then on to Chicago, and now finally on to Toronto. I'm currently actually at my sister's place in near Seattle, in Washington. So
Mm.
that's where I'm dialing in from.
Wow, you're going all over. You're going from the south all to the Midwest over to the West Coast.
That's right. So I'm just happy to be here. I would love to know a bit more about your, what you do here at It's My Time podcast, just to get started.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started this 2019 fall around I think October 2019,
Nice.
and the one thing I wanted to do with it was from meeting different people through college, like yourself, meeting people that I worked with while I was in college, after college. I always found it interesting. You meet people from all parts of the world, all parts of the country, and everyone's unique in their own way. They have their own stories. So I was like, oh, wouldn't it be neat to um, podcast, have a way to talk with people, but put it on a podcast platform, like the conversations you have, whether you're doing like you're studying for exams or you're working with somebody for long hours. It's like unique conversations come out of that.
Hmm.
So I thought it'd be a neat way to highlight everyday people, just people I've met in the everyday life, just going about. And just I figure it's kind of a good chance for me to share a little bit about myself, be a little bit creative, like get on camera, record the audio, figure out how that works, check out the tools and things like that, and just be like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, I haven't talked to someone in a while, like let's catch up. But like let's let's really catch up, but also kind of give them a chance to be like, oh hey, like I've got something to point to now and say like I did that. And if anybody asks, like here's a short or here's something of mine that's speaks to who I am as a person.
Well, I'm glad you reached out. It was fun getting to know you in school. I wish we had done more of that together back at Georgia Tech. But I think we were both just finding a way, and it was good to hear from you from now. So, where are you based at right now? Are you still in Atlanta, or have you
Yeah,
moved out?
I'm not too far from Atlanta. I'm about an hour out, back at my parents actually in North Georgia, where I grew up before going
Nice,
down to Atlanta for work. So
nice.
that's where I'm at now.
And so this is your is it your basement office, or is it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
your and you get the soundproofing thing going, so you have that
um
and everything.
Not, I haven't done the soundproofing thing yet, but I've realized and recognized like recording on the road or just at a different environment, either in the car or something like that, the downstairs area, it has somewhat of a soundproof area. And so long as I'm
Hmm.
using this microphone correctly, like speaking through it and not like over here to the side or
I
something
hear the
else, it's
distance.
like,
Yeah, yeah. I hope you can hear me
yeah,
loud and clear. Okay,
yeah,
great.
you're coming through
Yeah,
clear.
great,
So,
great.
I mean, catch me up a little bit. How has life been for you since tech? And even if you want to go back before then, like,
Um, I guess so. To put it, to give you a 2 minute brief on the whole journey this far, I came to the United States about nearly 8 years ago, like on August 8th, 2013, and that was to start with my master's journey in my master's of civil engineering at Georgia Tech. That's where I met you. Before that, I had finished my bachelor's in 2012. I had done a 4 year course in civil engineering itself from India, from the University of Pune. This is a small city. It's near Mumbai. It's an upcoming city now, actually, pretty big one. And it was a good university that I had a chance to go to, and that set me up to in this field. And I discovered structural engineering, and I realized that if I do a master's, it would not only give me an sort of a more in-depth knowledge, but it was also my ticket to get to the US, and in other ways to sort of become more independent, achieve something in life, turn my back around and show myself to people and say, you know what, I came here, I set myself up on my own 2 feet. This is my idea of success. It was always about me figuring it out on my own. And Georgia Tech was my way of getting there. It was a journey getting to Georgia Tech as well. Taking the GRE at the right time after finishing school. Undergrad. I worked for a year at a oil and gas engineering design firm. This was office. It was a Japanese firm which had an office in Mumbai, and I used to sit there and work as an engineer, just designing foundations for equipment processing plants that were being built in Egypt. So India, the Japanese firm was doing the engineering for it. They had an office in India. I was part of the office. It was a great organization too, but I worked there for a brief time for 11 months. And then I came out to Georgia Tech. And since then, I think 2 years at Tech turned my life around. I think I learned a lot about life, but a lot more about the subject matter of civil engineering, and got the confidence to apply and then join Thornton Tomasetti. This is a firm based out of New York, which has offices all over the US. Wow. So I joined them a month after I graduated in June 2015. So June 1st, 2015 was when I started, and I stayed in Florida for about close to 3 years, 2 years and 8 months. And in February of 2018, I moved to Chicago. So between Florida, at their Florida office and at Thornton Tomasetti's Chicago office, I've done about 6 years. I've worked 6 years there. And I worked almost half of the time as a design engineer, designing new buildings. And then as a forensics engineer in Chicago, working on evaluating issues in existing buildings. And I think it was about the last couple of years when I figured, okay, I've been processing this change in my mind for a while. I think it was somewhere inside of me, just even 2 years after graduating. But I wasn't ready. I think I wanted to give myself enough time in our own field and figure out if I really wanted to stick around. It was really something that I wanted to do. And just the sequence of circumstances led me to kind of make that decision to apply to universities in Canada. And then I got through to the University of Toronto for my MBA. So that's where I'll be headed next.
Nice. So that's awesome. It's like you got into engineering and you use that kind of as a springboard to say, okay, I want to get to the US master's degree. And now it's like you're going to Canada for the master's in business.
Yeah. Yes, the journey from making that leap from engineering to business has its own story. But in my decision to apply to schools only in Canada is a lot personal as well. I got married in 2019.
Nice! Congratulations.
Thank you. And my wife had been living in Bangalore up till that point of time. We'd met previously, and then we decided to get married. It was a long distance thing that we were trying to do. So we figured, that she might be able to come and join me in the US and work in Chicago. But unfortunately, her visa processes just kept setting us back until 2020, when it didn't look like there was any chance she was going to get a visa. And at the same time, COVID-19 struck. So it was a double calamity for us. She was stuck in India and I was in the US. And it was in that time really that I sort of pieced it together that one way for us to be together and also both be doing what we want to do and where we want to do is probably to go to Canada. And this was it was like God's way of signaling me that it's time that you moved up, pulled up your socks and, applied to school, made that pivot that you've been mentally preparing yourself for and talking to your close ones about. So I started studying in June last year, July, took my GMAT. So it was I revisiting the concepts and studied for GRE because, a lot of the stuff you study and these entrance exams are like similar. You get the test scores and everything. And so I took the exam in the GMAT test in August and applied in September, October, and got my admit result at the end of October. So it took a while, but that was that. So it was a two-pronged approach. One was professional. Yes, I wanted to change.
Mhm.
But also the other one was that my wife needed to be able to work somewhere, and I think somewhere I needed that personal reason to come in and sort of give me that, hey, there is no going back here, so you might as well, get this done with.
Yeah.
And so I did, and that's where we are right now.
Awesome. I guess will you be staying with the same company while doing your master's, or
No, I left the company back in June last month.
okay.
My master's program is full time,
Okay.
so it'll be a 20-month program that starts in August,
Mhm.
this upcoming August, and it ends in May of 2023.
Gotcha.
So just given the demands of a full-time program, with especially in a field that's so disconnected from ours,
Right.
like civil
Right.
engineering, yeah. So not working for that period, just giving myself the time to fully enjoy the course, I think.
Yeah. That's smart. I like that. I feel that that's something I learned very quickly in college. At least I was going for my bachelor's at the time that we met. But a big thing a lot of people find out with engineering, it's that you can balance maybe having like you need to have a life outside of school or similar to work, but like you really have to lock in full time in order to
Yeah.
pursue engineering.
Yep. Hey, Asher, just give me
Yeah.
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Sorry for that, Asher. Just I ended up getting a call that I wasn't expecting, so I'm gonna see what that was.
No problem.
Yeah. So you were saying,
Yeah, I was just saying it's good. It's good to see you kind of recognize that you're gonna have to commit so much time, and also putting yourself in a position to say, okay, I'm gonna do this full time and not
yeah,
work, like stepping away from the company. I'm sure you had to put the funds aside in order to be able to do that.
yeah. That's, I mean, it made a lot of sense in one way to continue working if I could, and then study at the same time, because once you start working, and once I had started earning, life has a different meaning, because everything, I have a lot more control in my hands. But then I also realized that the value of time is more than money right now. It's more than the money I make right now. If
Mm.
I were making a different amount, and I had sort of my priorities set in what I wanted to do, maybe I wouldn't have gone to school. But
Yeah.
the idea is to learn, enable myself to to get a job, or to do something that would not only give me satisfaction, but would
Mhm.
also give me a lot more financial freedom.
Mm.
And this MBA degree needed that sort of that time intensive approach.
Gotcha. So what, I guess, are you looking to move away from engineering going to as you're going to pursue your business degree?
That is the plan. I think I'm engineering, for me, over the last 3 years in forensic engineering, had become a lot more about um, coming into a problem fresh and trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
It was an engineering problem, but at times it was also not directly pertaining to my field of structural engineering. So I thought that if I'm doing this, when I'm just stepping into an unknown environment and solving problems, if I'm able to get my basics in finance, operations, and strategy in place in a
Mhm.
business setting, I could do the same thing for other business problems. So
Mm.
yes, I mean, for me, this is a chance to sort of broaden my horizons in a way.
Nice.
I'll apply the same skill set that I've learned through working at Thornton City to other areas. So it would not just be engineering now. It could be engineering, but it
Yeah.
won't be the nitty gritty work that we do every day, which is running the analysis models and performing calculations.
Mhm.
If I were to, I am looking for a consulting role to begin with, just
Mhm.
exploring that space right now, wherein I'd walk into a client's office, ask them about their problems, look at the data that they give me that helps me understand the problem,
Mhm.
and figure something out for them. And this could be varied, in all types, in all sectors, and even beyond the industry of construction.
Gotcha. I guess what was your engineering experience like work wise, getting out of college? And I guess what was it like? Well, what was it like? Maybe I should back up. What got you into civil engineering when you were like first starting out? Like, what made you think, okay, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to go study civil engineering?
So I think the first thing that drew me towards civil engineering was I would think it was in 11th grade when we started getting exposed to physics in high school.
Mm.
And to me, just the concepts of work, power, energy, and spending time figuring out how things move was highly interesting. It was the part of, I think, amongst the three subjects between physics and chemistry and biology, I enjoyed that the most. I thought it was very satisfying. And that's where I got the idea that, okay, this might be a field that I might be interested in. It would be either civil engineering or mechanical. So when I had the option of choosing, I had actually preferred to go with the course in mechanical engineering in another school. But my second option was civil engineering in my undergrad. And as it fell, that's what I got. So I was pretty happy with it, though. I think it had more of an overlap with those initial concepts in physics that I had studied back in 11th grade. So that was my motivation, to be able to solve problems that you can see around you. I didn't quite fully grasp what having loads on buildings meant at that time, back when I was 18 or 19, because I was just stepping into undergrad, and you could see cars moving, and I could imagine them stopping and starting at separate velocities. But imagining a wind hitting a building, yes, you could imagine that, but you couldn't quantify that mentally. It wasn't like it was a speed, or it was something that you felt on an everyday basis. But the more I thought about what our professors were telling us, I think it took me a few years to completely immerse myself in the field of civil engineering. So it was about, I think one of the things I liked most while I was in undergrad was the design of concrete and steel structures. Just the analysis part too. I think the professor would just go on the board, he would replicate a beam with a straight line, he would put loads on it, and then he would tell you to figure out how to solve it. Like, what are the reactions, what are the moment and shear force diagrams. And those were like the initial days when I would spend hours just looking at a beam, trying to figure out how to make it, if you added a moment pin here, and if you just coming up with ways to play around with it. And it was like it was a fun way to stimulate my mind. I think for me it was more about mental stimulation than anything else, and that's why I liked so that's what drew me to civil engineering, was physics. And then that's what kept me in it, the structural engineering.
Awesome. And I guess with structural engineering, when you're able to see it like on a master's degree level and then going to work in Florida like you did you find that the two correlated closely?
Yes, very much so. I think you remember the concrete course we had with Dr. Khan, and then the pre-stressed concrete course that he took in, I think he used to take that in the spring courses, and then the concrete he used to take in the fall courses, the reinforced concrete. Both those programs, or both those courses within the program, really helped me get a good grasp on what concrete and pre-stressed concrete generally were. And in Florida, TT, my company at that time, Tom Steady, did a lot of, was trying to get into the space of doing high-rise condominiums. As you know, the market in Miami has been hot for a while. It's been sort of, these types of buildings keep coming up, and our company is trying to make a name there, and they have now. We joined a new office there. We were about close to 30 or 35 people. So it was a good, tight unit. The knowledge that I had gotten from Georgia Tech sort of correlated directly. It helped me start up these models, and learning analytical software was easy on the job, but what helped me was being able to correlate that with the work. So I knew what the concepts were behind designing a particular slab or a particular beam, because we would in school go to the codes, take out the same book, open up the same pages, try and figure out, okay, this is what this says. So having done that exercise, I felt confident. And I think at Georgia Tech, they make you have to be confident and good at what you do, because that's the situation they keep putting you in time and time again through the course. So more than about the high-tech learning, it's about how well do you perform under pressure, and how well are you able to back yourself under pressure. I had a few incidences at Tech. I remember working with Dr. White on a course in the fall of 2014. I took an extra semester because I wanted to wait till spring of 2015 for the steel design course. I missed it out the first time because I ended up dedicating my time between finite element and multi-hazards. So I didn't want to take finite element analysis, multi-hazards, and steel. So I figured I'll take steel the next year in the spring of 2015.
Yeah.
So in the winter, in the fall semester of 2014, I took a course in the theory of elastic stability, which was a precursor to his direct analysis method course in steel design. So the theory of elastic stability was this really PhD level course, only 7 students. And I think I was perhaps the only master's candidate over there. So at the end of the course, everybody had to had to write a paper and present it. And it was my only attempt in school trying to write a paper and squeezing that in with all the other demands in that semester, and also the level of excellence that Dr. White expects from his students was a learning experience for me. I didn't end up getting a very good grade, but the fact that I could finish it and present it gave me tremendous confidence. I was like, all right, if I can do this under pressure, I think I can figure out problems in the industry too when I get there.
Man, that's awesome. You just reminded me of something. One of the professors said, I'm blanking on his name, but I took him for structural analysis too. And he's the one that worked with Dr. Emkin to create GT strudel.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember who for structural analysis too. I think it was it an Asian professor?
No.
I think no, was it? Oh, it wasn't.
It's an older Caucasian professor, not Dr. Khan, but
Dr. Ken Lawrence. I think it was Kenneth Lawrence, or it was Ken something.
I'll look it up later. But
yeah, me too.
I just remember I remember speaking to him, and I stopped by his office hours because I think the last semester they were over in the Biltmore because they were doing the reconstruction on the building. And I remember him telling me something where it was like at the end of the semester, and I was so focused on like, okay, I'm just struggling to like get to the finish line. It's like everything's just stacking on top of each other this last semester, and it's like all you got to do is finish well. And one thing he told me is like it doesn't matter how you start, but it's how you finish. And I was sitting there kind of mulling it over in my head thinking, man, I really wish that I could finish this well, like finish with an A in the class or finish with a B, because like a big thing with undergraduates, it's like if you can maintain a 3.5 GPA, that qualifies you to get into graduate school. But I think before that semester when he told me this, I'd taken myself out of that by I think 1 or 2 grades. But the reason why it comes back to mind now, it's because it's like the quote unquote finishing is not just about like the course that he was talking about, or at least this is how I'm choosing to use his words, is that the finish is like until you basically die, so to speak, not to make it too deep, but at least applying it in that sense to say, hey, if you start off rocky, like you still have room to grow, you still have room to learn. So don't treat it as like, oh man, I'm not making this grade, it's not coming together, the floor feels like it's falling out from underneath me. But it's like, hey, like however you started is however you started. The important things that you finish, and do your best to finish as well as you can.
I couldn't have. That's a really good saying, and that's something that I've experienced in my life over both my educational as well as professional career and time at Thornton Thomas Eddy as well. One of the things that I kept finding myself being challenged by was finishing projects strongly. You know, when you're in the middle, when you start a project, there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's a lot of learning curves, so you're very motivated. But when you reach towards the end is when you actually are almost done. There is very little work left, but it is so important to keep your patience then and just finish strong, making sure that you're encapsulating every single idea, every single analytical viewpoint, and then presenting a final result. I think that, and that also applies then in life. Like yes, you can do everything right in the first 75, 80%. The last lap, last 20%, very true.
Yeah, very true. Sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted for a second. I was like, I'll look over here and I'll find him, but it's like maybe I won't find him just yet because I didn't want it. I didn't want the time to go by, and I'm just like,
Oh, you're thinking about.
but
No, that's.
the I don't know if he still would have been there because it's like I know Dr. Khan that taught I had him for timber and masonry. That was or masonry. I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, you didn't pronounce it right. But it was thinking back to some of the professors, a lot of them I know were looking to retire.
Mhm.
So it's like whether it was Dr. Kenneth Will.
It was Kenneth Will.
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah,
think I had the Kenneth locked in, but yeah, you found him as
yeah.
I was before me. I was trying to Google for him as well. I found Dr. Khan
Yeah.
because yeah.
And then you got Dr. Zurich with the he was
Oh
the
yes,
wait, Dr. Zurich taught steel, right? Or concrete. No.
Dr. I think he taught steel for the undergraduates, and then he taught uh, polymer. I guess. Wait, he taught yeah, fiber reinforced polymer, or I should say non-destructive uh, design methods. I guess analysis and design methods too.
Yeah.
And he's
No.
also an expert witness. So he's an expert in fiber reinforced polymers. That was an aspect he often brought into his classrooms. I don't know if you experienced that.
I know I want to say maybe he gave us an example from time to time, but I was thinking about I know we're geeking out for a bit, but I was thinking about I think he went to the University of Virginia Tech, but when I got there in my undergraduate, I think I started I was there from 2011 summer to 2013 fall, and I think it was like I'm not, but it was just something about his excitement for concrete. And every time that he would say it, he'd be like, concrete. Like, how do you guys not know this? Because a big thing that a lot of the professors valued and they kind of shared with us is like in learning the technical side of the work, it's good to actually be out there and get your hands dirty, like mixing this, knowing, okay, this is how this goes together. I'm sure like, um, Dr. White that you mentioned earlier, he's big on connections. Like a lot of people would take him for his connections class where it's like he would talk about that for so much. Like Dr. Main, he's the big foundations professor as well as Professor Burns.
Yep.
They're just like everything that's below the ground, like they've mastered that thing. And it's it's good to like not only in catching up with you, it's like you're reminded of these people and you're reminded that okay, there's a reason why you get excited to do this thing. Like of course you're in school, you're kind of in a little bubble, but then once you get out into the real world, you might get smacked around a little bit. But to your point, it's like you've built some resiliency going to tech and other high level skills which constantly challenge you and push you to be like, okay, why are all my teachers conspiring to have 4 or 5 exams due in the same week, the same day, with tests, projects, and everything just back to back to back to back to back? But it's like, well, sometimes you might just have to deal with that one day, unbeknownst to
Yeah.
you.
It's I think Georgia Tech had that the type of setup which, you know, if you as a student wanted to do well in each and every course, you just had to make sure you just turned up every day to give your best, and not worry about the results. I think one of the things that I learned at Tech was to enjoy the flow of things, as try and enjoy it as much as I could, whilst also working towards the end results.
Mhm.
Because just worrying about what your final grade in a particular course would be was just too stressful if you did that for 4 separate courses.
Yeah.
You know, at one time, and as international students doing a master's program there, we had to take 4 courses because we have to maintain 12 credits a semester.
Right.
And man, just managing 4 courses at one time in that program was a lot of work. And I think it was great. I think I had a great time. It taught me a lot of things about time management and also about maximizing my potential. If I'm strong at something, let's try and figure out what I'm weak at. Let's try and address that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I noticed, like whenever I've been trying to catch up on LinkedIn, like I'll post some of the podcasts just to be like, hey, here's an episode just as an update to what I'm doing. And it, in a way, whenever I first started this, it seemed like a big variation from engineering, because I went the route of like getting out with the undergraduates because I wanted to figure out like, okay, how much of this can I actually do versus is it just, yeah, this is a nice theory, but like when it comes time to build it, like how can you build it? But as I was checking on LinkedIn, I noticed that you and 2 other people that we went to school with, maybe more, worked at the same company, and I was like, man, I guess they recruit a lot of Georgia Tech students, or you guys kind of paired up and like, hey, we're gonna go take the company over.
Yeah, they so Thorne and Tomasetti started out in New York and they branched out to the major cities first. I think the second office was in Chicago, it's a very big office in North America. And then they went to San Francisco. But when they realized they needed a presence in the mid-Atlantic South, I think Atlanta's market was already very competitive with a lot of good firms like Walter P. Moore and Ozone and Case. So they decided to come down to Florida. But in Florida, they had D. Simone engineering, consulting engineers also from New York based there. But other than that, they were looking to set up shop there and also diversify what they did.
Yeah.
So for them, the premier school in that region between Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, I think they identified Georgia Tech. So I was really lucky in that the principal of that office of Thorne Tomasetti's in Florida actually came to the school himself, along with one of our classmates. I don't know if you remember Carolina.
Yeah, that's whose name what came to mind at first.
Yeah, she's doing really well at Thorne Tomasetti. She's done wonderfully for herself over the last 7 years. She and I took a couple of courses together when she was in her senior year of her master's. I think she was finishing it up, and I had just started. So she recognized me from the recruiting session that they had conducted, and that's how I got drafted. And then when I came back, I identified a couple of people. So we now developed this steady stream of young Georgia Tech grads coming into TT's office in Florida. And it's been like that ever since. So I joined there with Eddie Diaz and Carolina Simmers and a few other of my upper classmates.
Gotcha.
And these guys are still there. So
yeah, it's funny because I think once I saw the thing from you, I was like, okay, Carolina's there, TJ's there, Eddie's there. It's like, man, okay, cool. And just kind of seeing the company you keep or the people you can aspire to be around, it's like it's encouraging just to know that like you guys were always about like about your business, about your work. Like it's you can have, like, if you have somebody that shows up and it's kind of like, yeah, it'd be nice, like I deserve this position because, but when you have to put up with not only the work that you do at school, but the work that you do on the everyday, it's like, I think the results speak for themselves and how you guys are able to get along with what it is that you're asked to provide or the problems you're asked to solve.
Well, yes, I think our training at Tech and just our attitude towards our homework itself sort of determined, sort of laid the foundations for a lot of a lot of our basic attitude towards work given to us or projects given to us at TT. Once they found somebody from Thorne Tomasetti who performed well, they set a standard, and when we came in, we made sure that we got in people from Tech who we believe would best epitomize that level of performance and keep the name of our school up.
Yeah.
And I think kudos to the way they, to the learning system there, and to the determination of the students who come in. You can see that coming through, that hunger, and just that the passion they bring towards, the discipline towards their work. I
Yeah.
think when I graduated and joined ET, every single assignment that was given to me for at least the first year, I think my life was all about making sure that I put in my best in that, the work in the most accurate and the quickest time. Because in design, you have to be aware of the implications of how much time you're taking to finish a particular task. If you can optimize it
Hmm.
to optimize your own learning skills, to learn things faster, you can save your business a lot of money, the company a lot of money. You then also obviously be a person who will be regarded highly in that particular field of design. So you'll be given more work.
Right.
And that's something I picked up on pretty quickly. So when I started at TT in Florida, they had me doing post-tension slab design on the first day. And it took me about 3 days to come up with my first slab when they had introduced me to the software. So I spent a couple of days understanding the software, and I finished the first run for the design in the first day.
Hmm.
And they were delighted with the fact that I could get them a result in 3 days. And then I worked for a few more days to fine tune it. But I think that sort of also was good and bad in a way, that they realized, okay, I got the hang of this. So they pretty much had me doing that for the next 3 years. And I worked on about 7 to 8 projects where I did slab designs for buildings one after the other. I mean, I think overall that my take away from that was highly positive, because that set me up to then go on to forensics in Chicago, and then look at post-tension slab
Yeah.
issues from a forensic angle.
Mm.
So the rigors of design set me up to get really good at creating an analytical models, because that's
Mhm.
what you do in design, right? In our field, you take parameters, you set up a model, you keep refining that model day in, day out. So what that makes you is very good at handling this particular kind of software.
Mhm.
And when you have to look at it from a forensic point of view later in when the building's made and there are issues with it, you use the code, but you have to apply your hypotheses through models. And that's
Mm.
where it helps for you to create that model again. And if you're quick in doing that, then anybody working with you, the principal working with you, is going to be very dependent on your skill set. So that
Yeah.
set me up for success in Chicago as well, because I had something with me that I could bring on the table 3 years
Mhm.
into my engineering. Um, and I enjoyed that. I think I reaped the benefits of that hard work.
That's amazing. The I I like how you were able to um how you're able to speak to your experience, but also what you gained from it, because I think that that's something that's very important. Um one thing that I felt kind of, I didn't spend as much time in an engineering role per se, where it was more design, but in a construction role, I spent more time as a liaison. And something that's very much needed as you step into whatever role it is you take, being a graduate, is that you have to have like confidence in yourself and confidence in your ability to perform the work. But something that became a challenge for me was kind of feeling that imposter syndrome immediately going to like orientation day one, like that first week. It's like people are just showing up like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm here. And I'm like, huh, am I gonna do this? Like, do I belong here? Did I really graduate? Like starting to just ask all these questions, but it's like it kind of went away and came back in different waves. And then um eventually for me needing to step away like in 2019 and like deal with some of the basics, like getting proper rest, nutrition, dealing with mental health and those types of things. Is that anything you had to deal with yourself, or did you do a well enough job to maintain um, the main things for you to not let your personal life affect your professional work life?
That's a good question, and one that's often not discussed as much, I would say. For me, being away from my parents who are based in India and living here in the US, I think I intuitively realized the enormity of that situation. I realized after graduating from tech, once the euphoria had settled down of joining a job and starting things, that this was going to be an everyday thing, right? I was going to manage my life, my single life, sort of figuring my way out through things. There's no school now, so that you're out in the real world. I would say I took it on bracingly. I enjoyed the challenge of exploring. When I went to Florida, I struggled initially to make a few friends until a year later when some of my friends from Georgia Tech joined in. I discovered that making friends here in the US, for me as an international person, not having the background that most people automatically share, that sense of common things, experiencing common experiences of growing up, it was a challenge for sure to connect with people. I could connect better with international people, but they were different, obviously from different backgrounds. Again, obviously the expat experience was something that I could share, but having my friends from Georgia Tech who were from my home country had meant that they had also gone through the same journey that I had. And I was very lucky to have one of them, who's also one of my very close friends, become my roommate in Miami. So when I would, or he would be fed up with just the struggles and the routine and the monotony of work and other things in life that come with it, we would turn to each other and just, sort of lean on each other's, our friendship really to see us through those days.
Yeah.
When I left Miami to move to Chicago, I decided to try out living alone. And I wanted to really experience what it is to live as I would say a full-blown adult, sort of making it out on your own, making sure you take care of all your bills, you're handling all the expenses. You don't have you have complete ownership of your time outside of work. For me, making it in Chicago by myself without my friends as the safety blanket was extremely tough in the first few months. I think that's where I kind of more realized who I was, but at the same time, what what were the things that were important to me at that time. So I was lucky then for that in a matter of, I guess, 6 to 8 months, I ended up meeting my partner, my wife, and I sort of had her as a companion for me to see things through, and we bonded well when we met, and I think that she was my support and is my support to this day.
Nice.
But nonetheless, I can understand that there have been times, especially with COVID and with the fact that we've had her immigration struggles, where my mental health has taken a beating. I think when I started seeing a couple of gray hairs at the back of my head this last few months, I realized that probably the stress had taken a toll on me.
Yeah.
I have become more cognizant of the fact that yes, sometimes the stress goes unsaid. It's a silent killer, this whole thing, especially the weight that is associated with immigration procedures in the United States, adds to a lot of the stress. But I found my little releases. I think having my sister close to me, and as in being close to my sister, who's also now based in the US, having some family here, having my wife with me, just talking to them when I needed to share things, my problems with someone, I think that helped me a lot.
That's good.
It was my way of therapy, really turning to family and leaning on them, and them doing the same when they were in any kind of problem. But yes, that aspect was, I did feel some of that. Now that I think about it in retrospect, maybe actively at that time, I didn't as much address it in that form.
Yeah.
When I think about it, like there was a lot of, mental health was precipitous.
Yeah.
At certain times. Yeah.
I think I like what you said. Like, it's not something maybe necessarily that gets talked about too much. And when I think about it in retrospect of how it's talked about, sometimes not talking about it too much isn't a bad thing so long as it's being addressed, because like a big part of something that I found to be helpful with mental health, it's like physical activity, communications with family, like with people around you, kind of feeling that you belong in community, not being isolated for too long, and not letting work and other things in life kind of like overwhelm you, like knowing, hey, if I need to take a break for a weekend, like go take some personal time, go plan a trip, go do something that you maybe wouldn't normally do, but find a way to be creative in your own way, or just interact with the people you care about and that care about you. But I'm curious to know, not to make it like somber or too deep per se, but how did you meet your wife?
That's a good story too. I think it's and it's also a different topic, but I guess just to get into it, in our culture, meeting people or meeting your life partners is not always something that you do by yourself.
Mhm.
So my parents have grown up in a culture where their parents found their life partners for them,
Mhm.
but my parents were with the times a little more accommodating in that day, and I worked together to look for my life partner. So we would talk
Mhm.
to. They knew their son was based in the U.S.
Mhm.
They knew that they wished for me to marry an Indian person, a person of the same background,
Mhm.
because they believed in preserving the culture.
Yeah.
And I shared that sentiment with them, despite my experiences here in the US. So I uh, figured that if I could find somebody who is from my background and his, has had the same experiences growing up, but
Mhm.
also shares that worldview that is similar to mine, it's the same as finding somebody here, because that's eventually the person I would end up being with anyway. So
Yeah.
um, colloquially, that's like, it's also known as arranged marriage. But what I would say that here it's that I look at it as a combined decision, between you and your parents, because in our culture, it's a union between two families, because families help you, support you a long way when it comes to
Right.
the initial years when you're getting used to each other, having a good bond with my wife's parents and her family overall helped me become closer to her as well.
Mhm.
So I met my wife in Chicago for the first time, but we had connected over phone before. She
Mhm.
was in Bangalore, and this was in August of 2018,
Mhm.
and we started talking when I was in Chicago, and we got connected through a mutual family that was based in Atlanta. So she had some family in Atlanta, I had some family in Atlanta, and that's
Mhm.
how we connected.
Nice. I, that's pretty cool. If you want to get into more of the details, feel free to. Like, it's funny when you mention it. Like it, the assumption popped up in my head, but it's like I didn't want to just assume like, did arranged marriage come up as a thing? Because a friend of mine, growing up, I think like the town that I'm in now, I went to fifth grade here, so like fifth grade through high school, graduated, and then went on. Like we were kind of like a melting pot in fifth grade, where it was like one school of all fifth graders. So you had people that were like the
Hmm.
Hispanic population in the area is very high. So I grew up with a lot of Hispanic friends and teammates, different things like
Right.
that, different people in sports and whatnot. And one of the guys that I came to know, Vinny or Vinamralada, I reached out to him recently because it's like I think he'd gotten married and his background is from India. I don't know which part of India, but I think he went through the arranged marriage process. But I was talking with someone earlier this year on the podcast, and we were talking about marriage, and she was just like, from her background or her standpoint, like being a teenage mom and kind of going through that process of raising boys, and just to where she's like, for her, it just wouldn't make sense having someone choose um, a mate for her that she would have to like learn to fall
Yeah.
in love with, because one of the things she said was that people are very good liars. So it's like you got to be very keen on how someone presents themselves and like what you're willing to accept and not accept.
That's a good point, and definitely a concern that I've heard from a lot of people, where they say when you go in and you meet somebody with the intention of getting married, I think people often project their best qualities because they know that this conversation is leading there, where you are making a decision in your mind. Um, but I would like to present an alternative scenario where
Yes,
you can
please.
date a person for 3 years and 5 years, or more, and you still don't. People still present themselves in a certain way that seems to make them more favorable to you, and you don't realize it until many years in. I think any long-term relationship, whether it starts from an arranged or a non-arranged perspective, is a risk. You always have that going in, where you don't know everything about a person.
Mhm.
And this is where I think where people have their concern with that, in arranged marriage, you're talking to a person with the intention of getting married.
Mhm.
You might be um, uh, taken for a ride, so and so. This is where your family and their experience really also comes in.
Mhm.
And marriages that are not arranged have other reasons why they won't work. I
Yeah.
think you mentioned like learning to love, and that's a true point, that you learn to love a person. Sometimes you love them immediately, but here's the thing: like sustained love and commitment is always a choice. It's not something that you feel you're hardwired
Mhm.
into doing. It's always at some point, at some level, it's a decision you make in your mind. You said, yes, this is the person I'm going to be with. This is the way I'm going to commit to this person, and you do that. So it's the same thing in arranged marriage, the way it works in love marriage. At the core of it, they're very similar.
Mhm.
The exterior mold could be different. So that's where I think that's how I would rest my case with that. That there is this love hidden in everything. It's just it's packaged in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. You presented that very well, and um, I like that. To your point, there's communication with not only your parents and you guys talking about this, but also with her family, and like everybody kind of having a seat at the table and presenting what it is that they want, to where it's
It
not kind of just like surprise.
No, I definitely wasn't that. In my particular case, at least, it so happened that my parents were here in the U.S. visiting me when we first found out about Juhi, my wife,
Mhm.
and so she was in Bangalore, and my brother and my sister-in-law also based in Bangalore. So that's when they met. Her parents, her along with met my brother and my sister-in-law, and
Mhm.
they just met, had a chat, had some coffee, had some food, and they came back, and they knew they were meeting for this purpose, but their idea was to get a sense from that person. And I have relied growing up on my brother's judgment.
Mhm.
And when my brother told me that she's a lot similar to you, I think you guys would be a good fit.
Mhm.
Uh, that gave me a lot of confidence going forward. In fact, it gave me more confidence than me alone making
Yeah.
decisions. Because sometimes I would feel a certain way about a person, but I wouldn't have anybody else who would give me their impression. When
Mhm.
I got to know her, this is one of the first things I picked up on,
Mhm.
and it has stayed consistently. It has been consistent to what he read into. So it I think it worked out favorably. I think that's maybe fate or destiny. It was how it was meant to work out, but it that that's how that happened.
That's awesome. So you're 3 years in almost.
No, just over two. We got
Two.
married in May of
Oh, right.
2019.
2019. I'm sitting
We're in
here already
July.
skipping years, just like, oh, it's been 20 years.
One of those years was a COVID year, man. So it's been weird. We haven't had 2 full years together. We did a lot.
Mhm.
We did a fair bunch of it. I think about 9 months of it long distance.
Mhm.
But she's been in the US since last year, August. So we've been living together since then. And then
Nice.
previously, she moved briefly with me, and
Gotcha.
came with me to the US after we got married in India, and then she had to go back um, to wait for her visa to renew. So it's been it's been a different kind of struggle there.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
you got married like pre-pandemic, so you had a chance to do like the ceremonies and
yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, that thinking about crowds and social distancing wasn't a thing then. So
Man, I guess that as I'm not gonna keep you much longer, but I appreciate all the time that you've given me so far. As we kind of wrap up, what is something that you gained from 2020?
let's see. 2020 took a lot from me. I think in terms of I would say the biggest thing I took out of 2020 was resiliency. Just finding the inner strength within myself to keep pushing through some of the toughest months I think in my life, where I knew that my wife didn't have her visa to sustain a job in the US, and I wanted to move away from my job, and we still wanted to make sure we wanted to set things up. Um, in the middle of that, figuring out a path and sticking to it, and realizing that path to today. 2020 is when a lot of that happened. When I got my first admit on the 8th of October, I think I felt like the whole texture of the year changed. Then I realized, okay, I finally achieved it. And then on the 24th, I got my uh, admission offer letter from Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. So I knew that we had a choice. We could either go to the first school, which was in India, or we could go to Canada. And then, the whole year was like this massive struggle, mental struggle for me. It was, I was alone. I knew I had to figure things out. There was the threat of COVID. Things were not looking good overall, but just finding that conviction to keep going,
Nice.
that helped, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Like, yeah, 2020 was a year, but I think I'm glad like towards the end of it you had like one thing after another like it's kind of came up out of all the I guess mishaps or not having what it is that you wanted and kind of being able to see the gleam or the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, when I look back and I think about the year, I feel happy that things turned out the way they did. Obviously, like you said, it's the finish that matters, and however you start is it's not something you can control, but the end result is something that you can always work towards. So I think it was a year of striving, and then finally seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. So happy the way it
Awesome.
ended.
And one last question for you. I always like to ask a guest is who do you say you are?
That's that's a deep one, isn't it? Um, if somebody does ask me, I like to say that I'm a dreamer. That's my first word, and I like to define it. It sounds well. I'm often conscious when I say it, but I think it's a dreamer and a thinker is where I would put myself. I imagine, I visualize, I dream, I fantasize, and that gives me a lot of the strength. The visualization gives me a lot of strength to push through and strive towards achieving it. Gives me that vision, right? If we don't have that, then you don't jump out of bed for in the morning. You need to find that within you, right? That and I think just by dreaming, it's just me. I mean, what I mean to say is essentially that I spend a fair amount of time in my head. It helps me keep my sanity or keep myself going, and that's how I find my motivation and drive.
Awesome. That was a great answer. I mean, there's never a wrong answer, but it's always great to see where everyone takes it differently because it's like you can go deep or you can just say what's on the top of your mind or even just like saying, okay, this is my name, this is who I belong to, or this is my family lineage. But I very
Yeah,
much appreciate that and it makes sense to what you're saying of like who you are. It points to like how you saw the value in your education and your work and um, setting up your life through marriage and kind of like going forward and being able to be like, okay, like possibilities are endless.
yeah. It's I think it's a better way to look at life. keep trying to strive for that thing. Even if you don't get it, you'll land somewhere, and you'll feel like you didn't spend your life thinking I didn't do anything. It's just like, oh, I kept trying.
Right.
Trying is what keeps me going, I'd say. But yeah, that's the answer I've always wanted to give, waiting for somebody to ask me that question.
Hey, but now you gave it. It's recorded.
It's on there.
It live in the world forever.
Well, thanks so much for having me and for reaching out, Asher. It's been great talking to you after all these years. And I do hope, like, even outside this podcast, we keep in touch. Keep me posted on what you're doing and where you are. And if you want to get together for a coffee chat again, recorded or otherwise, I'd be happy to.
Likewise. So are you in Chicago now, or are you on your way to Canada already?
I am in near Seattle now.
Oh, that's right.
Just spending the summer here at my sister's, but I will be in Chicago later this month, taking a U-Haul and driving across to Toronto the 25th.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, Toronto's not too far. I remember, I think it was visiting, what's the city on the US side of Toronto that's closest? Is it Detroit?
I think Detroit, yeah.
Okay. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was right there, but we'll make it happen. If nothing else, I'll send you my number and we can always text, call, or just something. I'll make sure to check in by the end of the month, just so that we keep in touch. Just
definitely, man. I think it is great to just hear from you after all this while. It's always good to talk to somebody about school and just about the time there. And I think I took a trip down memory lane along with you as well today. It was good thinking about hearing the names of those professors too, that we both studied under and learned so much from. I went to Georgia Tech it was in March, because I wanted my wife to see the school that I had begun my journey here in the US with. And so I was really happy that we were both able to visit the Mason building. She was able to sit in the classroom with me, and it was surreal. It was good being there.
That's amazing. Well, take care, and until next time.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day, and hope to hear from you again.
Yes, sir.
See you, Asher.
Bye, TJ.
This is the It's My Time podcast with Asher Tchoua.